Good morning, ma'am and classmates. I'm Lara May Sistoza, your informal sources reporter. Informal sources are a type of non-documentary source. But before we get to that, let us define non-documentary sources so that we may better comprehend informal sources. What is non-documentary source of information? The non-documentary sources of information are live sources which are extremely important in the process of communication. It provides information instantly and it is very easy to handle. Also include discussion with colleagues, visitors, participants of seminars and conferences, etc. Non-documentary sources of information are live sources that are crucial in the communication process, are live sources that provide information instantly. It means when somebody is having a knowledge of information in his mind, he can instantly share it with you. The primary disadvantage is that it is expensive when the distance between individuals is large. It also necessitates the employment of very complex technology, such as a computer system, video conference, telephone, and so on. What is informal sources? Informal sources may complement formal sources when the latter cannot supply crucial information. An information source could be an individual or organization that specializes in a particular topic. Information from informal sources can be obtained by interviews, letters, emails, or phone calls. For example, if a scientist working on an experiment requires information, he or she might consult a colleague in the same laboratory rather than a printed page. It is far simpler to converse with an expert than it is to examine bibliography, index, card catalog, or even a reference librarian. The first example of an informal source is oral sources. Man's earlier attempts to record thoughts, concepts, ideas, and events. Mouth was the primary means of passing down information from one generation to the next or from one person to another. It means that information is interacted, the information is exchanged from person to person, and that information is communicated with individuals face to face. Let me show you an example of oral sources.
What is this machine?
They were looking at the inside of a chemistry analyzer. So when someone, for example, comes in the hospital with a heart attack or a suspected heart attack, this is actually one of the instruments we use to see if there's been damage. So you're always learning about new instruments. Your day is always different. Your day is never the same. You might be learning a new instrument, a new technology. We're looking at tubes, and I'm going to tell what this person's blood type is by using my reagents and these tubes. So if you're an A positive patient, or if your blood type is O, I'll be able to tell from these tests. You're putting drops in tubes, and you're using pipettes and small equipment, and you're doing gradients. So always double check your work.
Sure.
You do not want to make a mistake. This person's bleeding in the merge, and they need blood quickly. You need to work quickly, but accurately as well. So the centrifuge is slowing down. It has spun the two samples together. So basically my patient's cells have just been spun. But if you look here, this is my tube. That there is a blood clot. That's a agglutination of the patient's cells.
So because the blood clumped together within this solution, you know that this is what type of blood?
This is an A person.
Okay.
Because I put A reagent in and blood clumped. You have an A person.
As you have seen, the information is communicated both orally and in person. The second one is telephone talk. Telephonic conversation as an exchange of information between two persons over telephone. This is not a face-to-face conversation, rather a person-to-person conversation where nobody sees other but hears each other and interacts instantly. When the distance is greater and time is of the essence, telephonic communication is most effective. Cell phones along with landlines are becoming more popular as mechanical means of oral communication. Telephone is the medium through which information is communicated. just as call center agents are credible in providing information. This is not a face-to-face discussion, but rather a person-to-person interaction in which no one sees each other but hears and engages instantaneously. Here is an example of telephonic talk.
Thank you for calling Coats and Gas. My name is Sam. How can I help you?
I got a quote from Mechanics, but I need to return it because it was the wrong size and the size is not available. I haven't received an email from you and I wonder if my payment has been refunded. Seems like it does not reflect my account yet.
I do apologize for the inconvenience, but let me go ahead and check if there are some notes in the order details. May I ask for the original online order number?
Okay, let me see. Please wait for a moment. Okay, hold on. Okay, I believe it's 017 1425 793.
Thank you. Just to verify, that's 017 1425 793, correct?
Yes, that's right.
I do apologize, but the one that you provided is actually not accepting towards our database. Do you actually have a number that starts with 0007 or 7? Or can I ask for your first and last name so I can manually check it in our database?
Yeah, I'm not sure about a 300 something. Anyway, it's Adam Wilson.
Alright, thank you. So, Wilson.
As you have observed, information is transmitted via the source, the channel, and the receiver. The third one is discussion. Discussion is a specific format used in a meeting, conference, or convention. It is a live, in-person, or virtual discussion about a specific topic amongst a selected group of experts who share differing perspectives in front of an audience. The fundamental purpose of a discussion is for professionals to share their knowledge and give insights in order to deliver actual values and takeaways to the audience. It's a up-close and personal conversation. Specialists or practitioners in the area who present information, offer opinions, and reply to audience questions chosen by the moderator or taken directly from the crowd. It can be produced to be presented live or recorded for replay, in person or remotely, with the moderator in one place or attending remotely, and with the audience in one physical room or virtually. Let me show you an example of a discussion.
Ladies, thank you for joining us and being here today. I want to get right to it. Keita, I'm going to start with you because you're a researcher. What's the research show about this situation today?
We know that bullying is associated with short-term and long-term consequences for both the person that's being bullied as well as the perpetrators. And so some of those consequences can be anxiety, depression, an increase in alcohol and substance use, lower grades, as well as just skipping school altogether.
Holly, you're an educator. How does the schools deal with the research that comes from what Nikita's just been talking about?
Real life bullying and online bullying aren't that different. It's really about behavior. It's not about the method where it's happening. So we really want to talk about behavior, but when it comes to the cyber part of it, we use technology for a lot of things. And so anytime we're working on a project that involves technology of any kind, there's a behavioral element to that we want to incorporate into the teaching. Like, how are we going to use this tool to communicate effectively? We talk a lot about the fact that once you have a screen in front of you and you're interacting in a digital format, you lose, face-to-face conversation. You can't see someone's facial expressions. You can't hear the tone of their voice. You can't see if they're smiling when they're talking. You have to interpret what they're saying in a very different way when it's text only or when it's through some digital medium. So there's lots of opportunities in the work we do as educators. They give us a chance to talk about what's the behavior that we want to see in this space so that we give kids the tools to practice. What I like to talk to kids about is that whole idea of when you're in a group and you're in a situation where you're witnessing something, what is it about the group dynamics that make it okay for you to stand up and say something, or what might prevent you from speaking up yourself in that situation? What I like to do in lessons is to give them like role play exercises. Let's look at a situation and let's look at all of the different players in this situation. Well, what would we do at each step along the way to stop this from happening?
Shannon, you have 3 teenagers.
I do.
God bless you. How do you react in this environment? There's a certain trust you have to have with your children. I mean, children do keep things to themselves. How do you deal with that as a parent?
I think that the family values that we instill and start talking to our kids about when they're really young have a huge impact on how they're going to want to present themselves in an online situation, whether that's through text or social media. I also feel
As you have watched, experts in the field are discussing bullying in a professional manner.